Howdy everybody, welcome to the Picaro ×2 build video number 2. We're continuing with the twin Picaros here and we're getting into the organizing of the fuselage section next. So let's dive back in. All right, so a little bit done last night. We got our layout kind of finished up. So this stuff's just sitting in there. Obviously it's not going there. But we got our Cortexes mounted. Both of the aircraft are gonna be laid out exactly the same. All the electronics are identical. We've got our fuel pump mounted. These are our 3D printed little plates that we made. So those are mounted. Cortex is high solid in place. And then it's double-sided taped with its piece to this piece that we've got glued in the base. Installed our pitot tubes on the nose of the aircraft. So those are both done the same. The green one's in a little bit further, but basically just the pitot tube is sticking out of the nose. Works perfectly. So in this case, we get rid of the white line and just have the red line from the pitot tube coming back to the sensor, which will get put in the aircraft. And I've got the red nose gear put together, basically ready to install this in the aircraft. So that's all done. So I'm going to hook up our controller, drop this guy down, get it all centered, and we'll get this screwed in place. Just like the wings, we use wood screws for our landing gear. Benefit of using wood screws is if you ever have a big oopsie, generally these will pull out before anything gets completely destroyed on the aircraft, so that's why we use them. On a plane like this, 2-meter plane, the number 6 by 3/4 is pretty much the most common that we use. And this has a Robertson head, which is a Canadian thing, but it's a square head, so basically doesn't strip out ever. All right, so the purple and green one also has the landing gear installed, so that's done. Both of them are the same there. And we have installed our electronics on both as well too. So the Electron Gear Controller, Chikoi Pro Hub, and the SPEC 30 are all Velcroed in place. Now on the SPEC 30, I did use, it's kind of got a metal thing on the back side right in the center. So I put Velcro here, and put a little dollop of goop on the middle there. So it will come off if need be, but it's stuck. So electronics portion is installed on both of them and good to go. So I think the next thing that makes sense to do is to get our tanks ready to install. So we're gonna get those guys ready. The tanks are pretty straightforward. We take the bung out of the tanks. Generally on these Elite Aerosports aircraft, the lines, yes, are zip tied like that, and it's got very stiff lines. So we'll redo these guys and put safety wire, of course, and a different pickup line as well. All right, so getting closer to the installation of the ducts and the tanks. On the red one here, we've got our extension lead done up, and our tanks are done and installed. So we have to plumb some of these tanks. So on the center tank, or the header tank, if you will, we want to plumb the vent line here. This vent line comes forward, goes to a T, and then goes to both of our saddle tanks. You want to plumb the pickup on the saddle tank. So these are plumbed exactly the same length. And then whatever we cut off one side, we cut off the other side. So those will come to a T like this. But it's important you do that because your ducts are going to all be in the way here, and you don't want that to be hindering the duct installation. And now that I think about this, I think previously I actually ran these behind the ducts like that and then down. So I'll have to take a look at that and see what we did previously. But yeah, so I may need to pull those tanks out and extend them. We've got our turbine lead here installed, going from the front to the back. We've got our fuel line installed. Turbine is just sitting in there. We need that to be pushed back a little bit so we can get our ducts in here and also screw them down. So next thing to do is I'm going to put the intake ducts in here just to see where we're going to run this. And we'll get those ducts installed. All right, tanks for the green and purple Picarito are ready to install, so that's a good step. We're gonna get this stuff installed next. But let's talk about the elephant in the room, this. Now, a few of you guys made some comments regarding the wire bundle. I just wanna clarify some things. First of all, why did I remove all of this stuff? Well, because we're doing a test. That's why I removed all this stuff, because If I left all this in, it wouldn't be an equal comparison. These planes are getting set up exactly the same way, and it only makes sense to take out the wires that we're not using. So if you were wiring this plane here using whatever wire, you would obviously be adding some additional wires to run lights and afterburner lights or whatever you want to run. That's where this comes in, the bundle that we removed in video number 1. So I think that the Elite Aerosports bundles, the wiring harnesses, are fantastic. I love the fact that in my aircraft, it was a really easy install. I don't know what the final results are going to be. Yes, this is heavier wire, but our planes have also, in my opinion and others' opinions, they've been lacking in the wire thickness, wire gauge, wire quality for quite some time. A lot of our servos are very high draw servos. You know, most people are still running 8.4 volts, which we call high voltage now. There's higher voltage systems out there that are becoming more common, but we're still using, or a lot of people are still using wire that is from 15, 20 years ago or older. So this is wicked stuff. I said at the beginning of video number 1, I really struggle using somebody else's wiring harnesses, and that's just because I never made it. But obviously I trust in this enough that I'm using it in my airplane, and I'm really excited to see the results of the test. I don't know if it's going to be heavier, lighter, the same. I envision it's going to be so close it's not going to matter, and the quality difference is better. Now I want to do a couple tests for you guys and show you why this stuff, the Elite Aerosports bundles, are good quality and perhaps even better. So I did a little bit of research today. I reached out to the Elite Aerosports guys, got a bit of details on the wiring harnesses because I wanted to share it with you guys after the questions were brought up. And these wiring harnesses are made by a professional vehicle wiring harness supplier, which is awesome. It's not just somebody doing this for fun. You've got high quality, temperature rated wire, and that brings up a good point. Let's test this. Now, lots of people, including myself, use this stuff right here, this fancy red, white, and blue stuff, which is very common. And we're just gonna simply turn on the hot air blower here, the little mini heat gun, which gets very hot. And we're just gonna put these guys in at the same time and see what happens. So we'll put them exactly the same spot, roughly split right in the middle. So one thing I know about the power box wire is I've got some old stuff that's been kicking around, and it is not UV stable. I believe it says right on the package that it is not UV stable, keep it out of UV light, versus the stuff from Elite Aerosports, the silicone wire, is definitely UV stable. All right, so the power box wire is starting to get glossy. And my hand's starting to get quite hot. So now this isn't flame, we're just using heat right now. All right, so I don't know how long that was, but we'll take a look at both of these pieces. So yes, we've got wire that is, all this wire is now glued together. So it's stuck together. And you can see where the sheeting had starting to melt here. The silicone wire here, perfectly intact, no issues. So if you're looking at an Elite Aerosports aircraft, I highly encourage you to check out their wiring harnesses, if not just purely for time savings, which is a huge benefit to me building these two aircraft. When I did the wiring harnesses for the wings and the fuselage on the Picaro, it took me hours. I can't remember if I covered that in video number 1. Having those wiring harnesses pre-made for you in my Picaro, huge thumbs up. So encourage you guys to check it out. Obviously at the end of this video, we'll see about any weights, positives, negatives. From what I suspect, we're gonna be negligibly different, if that makes sense. I think the difference is gonna be next to nothing. All right, so Picaro purple is at the same stage as Picaro red. All that stuff's done, so we're ready to start moving on to the front portion of the aircraft. So I've got our M-speed sensors modified here to suit our installation. So when we install this M-speed sensor, we only use the red line from the pitot tube. We don't use the static tube. You may disagree with that, totally fine. So we've only got one lead coming to here. The sensor picks up the static from inside the fuselage from the black tube right there. The signal lead, which is the red one I think marked out, or the control input is what it's marked as, that one just gets cut off and some shrink tube put over top. And then this guy is shortened to suit our installation. So this gets plugged into our SBEC 30 in the EX2 port, and that sits right here. So plug that guy in like that. Then our pitot tube is going to come underneath here through that hole and plug right into our sensor. Sensor is going to get mounted right there, so it's nice and tight. And then our turbine from the Chikoi turbine, that gets plugged into EXT1, and then this RX EXT goes to the primary EXT port on the REX12 receiver. So that's how all of that stuff works. That's another reason why the SBEC 30 is a great device. As far as the power goes, the way the power works here is we have the input for the SBEC right here. So that's going to be sitting right in that location. There's going to be a pigtail coming off, and that's going to be going to the Chikoi turbine battery input. The rest of this lead is going to come forward to our battery plug-in, which sits right here. So the Chikoi turbine is getting straight 3-cell voltage from our battery, which is sitting right here. After the SBEC, we've got our lead here. This lead is going to be split off, so one side or part of this power is going to be going to the control system. The other part's going to go to the electron retracts in the power input, which is right there. All right, so Picaro red is progressing nicely here. We've got the pitot tube all installed, ready to go. We've got our plug-in for our nose gear installed, plug-in for primary battery. All the wiring's done here. Everything's plugged in and installed where it needs to go. As far as antennas go, we've got our primary receiver. One antenna's here, other one is crossed. We've got one of the 900s sitting there, another 900 down there. So in my opinion, sports jets definitely don't need a 900 receiver. Putting one in here just to try it out with a new radio and everything, and yeah, looking forward to it. Well, now one of the important things with setting this type of setup up is we've got the REX12 is our primary, the 900 plugs into E2 of the REX12, and then our clone plugs into the 900. So you've got REX12, 900, clone is the sequence. That's how we've got it set up, and I'm just running the cables here between everything. So we've got our E2 going to E1 on 900, E2 for the 900 needs to go to E1 of clone, and then we've got our E1 port on the REX12 going to our Cortex, and then our secondary power going to Cortex as well too. All of our other leads are plugged into the Cortex, so that's all good to go. So all I'm doing right now is just our small little leads between everything, like Chikoi telemetry and all that stuff. So also got the plumbing done up here. With these tanks, there's a little bit of play in the tanks. So there's one screw down there, and then of course our bung fitting in the front here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a piece of foam and just kind of jam it down there, the black colored foam, like the jetty foam, jam it down there, and that's just going to provide outside pressure to the tanks and just prevent them from wiggling around. It'll be invisible once it's installed. And then of course we've got our Festo Y fitting for the vents. That comes in a loop and goes right down to the vent fitting there, and the rest of it still needs to be plumbed. So good progress on red. When we're done red here, we're going to flip right over and do the exact same thing to purple. All right, so red is all completed as far as the wiring goes, and we're ready to turn this thing on for the first time. So we've got our wings installed. The wing gear is currently up. The nose gear is currently down. A couple differences here from the first one. I think the first one we put a Cortex or GSU plug on this top board, and I think another one back here. So I mixed that up a little bit. We put the GSU and the Cortex plug right in there. That's so when we've got this plate installed here, we've got access to reprogram the Cortex, and we can plug in our GSU if we need to do something to the turbine. But otherwise, everything else is ready to go. Everything's wired. Obviously, it's pretty tight in this area, but we've got everything installed. Now, I haven't gone through and shoe gooped everything because we want to make sure it all works. But we are ready for our first startup. So what I'll do is I'll plug in a battery, just have it kind of sitting in this area, and we'll fire this thing up and see how things go. Now, generally on a sports jet like this, we've already done a lot of our pre-programming. That's all finished. So I'm not really expecting any surprises. The only thing we're gonna have to do is this gear controller sometimes requires a little bit of modification to it, or programming to it, I should say. Oh, we do need to run our gear leads. That's something else I forgot to run. So I need to run our servo leads from the Rex 12 to the gear controller. So I'll get that done, and then we'll do our first startup. All right, so just turned the plane on, everything is good. The only thing that we need to adjust right away is the S-Spec is only outputting like 5 volts. That's the standard, so we're getting alarms on our radio. So low voltage, you can hear there. So we'll go into the model, device explorer, and we go into the S-Spec 30, and we are going to adjust things here. So right now our BEC voltage, our output voltage to the receiver system is 5 volts. We're gonna bump that up to 8.4. So now our 3-cell LiPo is regulated down to 8.4 volts. Our outputs are both expander, which is good. So our EXT ports, that's where our telemetry stuff is plugged in. We'll go into telemetry, you can see there our input voltage, battery current, so that's how much is coming out. So if I, wiggle the sticks here, all the surfaces, we're getting 2 amps-ish, and that's our BEC output right there. So lots of information here, which is great. We've got telemetry min-max, so now we are good. First thing I'm gonna do is go in and check our sensors and see what's showing up. So we got our turbine showing up, which is awesome. Our S-Spec 30, our S-Spec 30. So this one is the old one. Because this program is being reused, we can delete all this stuff because it's no longer valid. Turbine, same thing. We're probably going to have another turbine. Yes, you can see the second turbine. So we'll go in and delete this turbine. There we go. So now we've got our S-Spec 30, which is correct. M speed 1, M speed 2, so we'll delete the M speed. M speed that's actually working. We've got feet per second. We'll change to miles per hour. And there we go. So now we've got all of our turbine data on there. So that is the very first startup. Now, as soon as I started it up, our gear went down, which is perfect. Our brakes are currently working. And if I go gear up, I'm not sure if it'll work, but we'll find out. Nope. So I think we need to program this. I need to look at the manual and see what the thing says for the Electron stuff. All right, so your gear is going to come with a link here to the manual. You can also go to the Electron website, and there's basically a good manual here. Pretty much what it is, I'll just keep this general, but you take a trusty bent screwdriver, because that's the best tool. We're going to hold down the set button on the Electron controller. We're going to turn our system on. Everything's booting up right now. And now that it's good, we're going to let go of the button. Now on the button, we get a single blue blink. That is for the retracted position. So we set the gear in the retracted position. It's not going to do anything. And then we push the button. Then we're going to get 2 blinks. We're going to go in the gear down position. And it's learning while it does this. Push the button. We got 3 blinks, which is brake all the way off. And we push the button. And this is where it's important. You want to have your brakes on as the max value. So when we took this program from the previous plane, the max value was only at -30 for this brake setup. You want to have that at -100 and then reduce it again. Otherwise, it's learning the -30 as its max. So now that we've got floor blinks, we're going max brakes, pushing the button, Now we've got 5 blinks, which is for steering. We're not using the steering. We push the button again and we've got a solid blue light on the gear controller. So now if we do gear up, everything works as it should. Check that the brakes don't work. So brakes are currently on and they are not working. Brakes off, gear down. Brakes are currently not working, and if we go max, they are currently locked. So that is good. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our radio, we're going to go back into our brake channel. So model, servo setup. We're going to go to our brake channel and we're going to do our negative, which is brake on, as it was at -30. So we'll go back to -30 again and see how that fares. So -30, it's pretty darn good. At the halfway point, pretty good. And then brakes off. All right, and since we've got the plug-in set up, that's where we're going to plug it in. Signal's always forward, but we are marked. So we plug in our GSU and it pops up. So now we can do our turbine stuff. So we'll go into startup parameters, kerosene. We're not going to mess with any of that. That's good. We're going to go into radio. We'll program our radio first. So yes. So stick up, trim up. Okay. Stick down, trim down. Okay. Stick down, trim up. Okay. Now we'll go into our radio again. Radio adjust, no. So half expo, which is good. That's where we run it. Restart mode, auto. Perfect. Then we go into our run menu. So we got our full power there, idle speed, auto. Fuel capacity, we're going to bump this up to, I think this setup is 3,800 milliliters. And that's good. And then we'll go into our info screen. I don't think we've been there. Cycles, 2 cycles. Oh yeah, I ran this engine on the stand already. Test starter. I'm not going to bother with that stuff because we've already run the engine.
50 seconds.
There we go. So that is all of the setup. Now if we take a look at the rest of the surfaces, everything is, other than possibly a little bit of centering, everything is going to be bang on. So that aileron's good. Because our flaps are on, our elevators have a bit of compensation, so we'll take our flaps off.
20 seconds.
Check those. Check that aileron, we're good. This flap needs a little, maybe a bit of sub trim. No, it's good.
9, 8,
And those elevator servos from
5,
Chaw Servo are crazy strong. Wow. Okay, rudder, we're centered at the top. That's good. Okay, that flap is good. That flap's good too. Awesome. So now what I'll do is I'll get my flaps set up. So because the flaps are radio based, I just look down the flaps and even them out. Right now this one's way out compared to that other one. So we're going to go into our flap menu, which is fine tuning, butterfly flaps. And we can adjust each of these individually. So we take symmetrical off, and S1 is always left, S2 is right. So I don't know which one's which, but we'll adjust S2 to be matching S1. And I'm not worried about the number. What I'm worried about is the visual of the flaps. So there we go. Those are both equal. So we ended up at 69 and 60, which is no big deal. And then we'll go to full flaps and just give that a visual. That should be bang on equal because that was done mechanically. And when I look down at those flaps, they are bang on equal. Barn doors, they're like pointed straight down, which is awesome. And then we'll go back to flaps off, which shouldn't do anything because we've already adjusted those. Beautiful. All right, so with all that stuff done, it's time to do the exact same thing to purple Picarito over there. All right, and the twins are on their legs. We got rid of the big crate, put it in my trailer, so we've got some more room to mess around here. So next thing we're gonna do is we need to get these guys weighed and weight checked. So as we talked about in the first video, we were just comparing the wiring harness weights, and I'm curious to see what happened. Now, basically we have built these planes for all intents and purposes identical. So the only real difference, other than like the brand of some of the servos, is obviously the wiring harness and this UAT. So David went with the 100 milliliter UAT, which has a 3D printed base and everything. So it's a little bit lighter than the 160 that's in mine. So what I did before I started wiring these things up is I weighed the UATs, the Digitech ones. And this is the weight that makes this one equal to the one in my aircraft. So when we do the weight checks on these planes, we're gonna make sure that we have those weights sitting in there, but otherwise everything is identical. So we don't have a battery in there, we don't have any fuel yet, so we're not ready to run this thing, not really ready to CG this thing. I'm just keeping it completely equal so we can weight check the planes and see where we're at. So I am gonna get our RC CG machine out so we can do our CG checks, and I'll get my Chikoi scales out, and we'll take a look at these things and get them on the scales and see what they look like. I've let the scales sit out for a little bit here, and we'll just tare it before we weigh each of these guys. So I'm gonna leave the video rolling so you guys can see what's going on here. So I will get the scales put underneath the purple Picarito first. So we're not doing CG, we're just doing the weight at this point. So my scales are all marked, so we're gonna make sure we put the exact same scales under each of the legs. So it's right, left, and front. Without a battery in here, that nose is very light. All right, so just double check the scales. All right, so I'll bring you in and show you guys. So we are 26.22 pounds in our current scenario. 26.22. So we'll pull our scales off and we will get them installed on the red one. Yeah, without anything in the nose of these things, like no UAT full, no battery in there, it's very light on the nose. I think it was like 0.65 pounds or something like that, so. All right, so we'll go right to the red. And turn you guys a little bit. There we go. So we'll do the same thing. We'll put these scales down. We'll make sure we tare our scales. Left, right, front. Okay, so our scales say 0.01. It's fluttering back and forth, so we'll just tare that out. Zero it. So the purple one was 26.22 pounds. Get that one centered. Nose is centered, that one's centered. 26.33 pounds. So really, 0.1 pounds, 10% of a pound, 1 ounce heavier on the red Picaro. So that's awesome. That's very good. What was the point of doing this? The point of doing this was just purely to weigh the Elite Aerosports harness and a do-it-yourself harness. Now, it's a common question, the Elite Aerosport ones, when you look at the whole harness, of course it's going to be heavier. There's a lot more wire in there. It's thicker gauge wire, thicker gauge sheathing on the wire, and I mean, I think the amp connectors at the wing are going to be very much the same as the Ashlock ones, especially with the holders that we put on there. But this is cool. I'm very happy. Obviously, if we were running lights in either of these aircraft, we'd have additional wire for those lights, so it really is irrelevant. So what does this mean? Well, I'm happy I used the Elite Aerosports wiring harness in my Picaro. It definitely saved a ton of time. Quality is top notch, and I really wouldn't have a problem in the future using any of these Elite Aerosport harnesses after now installing one and using one. So thumbs up, Elite Aerosports. You guys definitely make a good wiring harness. I'm glad I did this comparison, and honestly, I thought it was going to be substantially heavier, but the results basically show you it's essentially nothing. 1 ounce, I think, difference. So awesome. So what we'll do now is we will get these things ready to CG. So what does that mean? It means we're going to put some fuel in the UAT. We're going to put some fuel in the first tank and just make sure that we're in landing condition. So when you're CGing a plane, you want to be in landing condition. So if your tanks are directly over the CG point, it really doesn't matter if you have fuel in there or not, but in this case our tanks are a little bit in front of the CG point, so we'll get both of these planes ready and we will get them CG'd and see how they come out. Now previously, the previous Picaro that we built had a 195 in the tail, same battery and UAT layout in the front, so I think we added weight on the previous one. Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Mine, I think both of them are still probably going to add some weight, but I'm just guessing at this point. So let's get these guys ready. All right, guys, and like usual, using our RC CG machine really makes this whole process just a breeze. So we CG'd the red and black, my Picaro, and it took 2 strips of weights in the nose section to get it balanced perfectly. Now, when I was in this situation, before I put my canopy on, it said add 0.25 pounds at correction point. So because this one has a smaller UAT, we're probably gonna have to add some more weight. So our UAT is full, same measurements we did on the red one. So our UAT is full, and we've got 600 milliliters of fuel in tank number 1. We've got our battery in place, and we'll put the canopy on and see what it's telling us we need to add. Okay, so we need to add 0.23 pounds to the nose. So there's a nice little pocket in the nose here to slip those guys in. So we've got 1 strip, 2 strips, and we'll just put 3 in because I think that's what we're going to need compared to mine. All right, so, actually nose heavy, 0.15 pounds. So maybe we still use 2 strips of weight. Well, that's curious. Then we get to see what the difference is between the final weight on these guys. Okay, so we've got 2 strips in this one. And bang on. Perfect. That's awesome. So it took exactly the same amount of weight. So let's see what our screen says here. All right, so the final weight on the purple one, perfectly balanced, is 28.45 pounds with 2 strips of weight in the nose. My weight on my red one, perfectly balanced, so almost exactly the same nose weight, 28.81 pounds. So basically these planes they're really almost exactly the same weight. So you've got 36 pounds difference between these two in their current format. So that is impressive. Very nice. So we've got about 600 milliliters of fuel in the tank, so that leaves about 3.2 liters in the rest of the tanks to put in. All right, it's engine run-up time. So we've put some fuel in the tanks here. Now I can't remember if we could see, if we had these little viewing windows in our previous tanks, but if you look there, there's the clear little viewing windows, which is nice. So I've put about 2 liters in those tanks, which is tons. So we're gonna run this up and we're gonna do our normal procedure basically. Our normal procedure is, this is the very first run on this engine. So we're gonna let it run, let it idle, let it stabilize at idle. Then we're gonna slowly go to full throttle. We're gonna let it sit at full throttle till it reaches its max RPM, and then we'll come back down. We'll do some acceleration checks. We'll pinch off the line, and we will do a restart check. The restart's been turned on, and it's basically the run-up of this engine. So like most Chikois, most Swiwins, it's pretty uneventful, but it's fun to run these up for the first time. So let's fire up the Picarito, purple and green. The other thing we'll do near the end of the test is we're gonna put the canopy on. Previously, when we built the first one, as I covered in the first video, all these supports in the canopy weren't there. So they've added these supports as a stock thing now. I added them on the previous one and added some additional carbon and stuff. So I think the canopy will see less squishing in of the canopy. And also this is a smaller engine too. The previous one was a 195, 190, 195, something like that. And this is a 160. So, all right, so we got all of our safety equipment ready. We've got our GSU plugged in. Let's do it. First start. check from full idle, so we're at 40,000, throttle stick max. Big difference in the canopy. It's perfect. All right, just doing a little heat check back here. That all looks good. Awesome. Yeah, everything looks stellar. Everything worked out really well with that engine, of course. Yeah, everything's good. The 160 is a really nice engine because it's just a little bit bigger than the 132 in the Chicoy lineup, but yeah, everything ran great. The initial start was a little bit slow because there was so much air in the line, but otherwise operated as expected. Restarts nice and quick, so very good. All right, and just to confirm, we hooked up our fueling system, drained everything out, and redid the fill of the tanks, and we are exactly basically 3.8 liters on the tanks. So same as the first Picaro, so we've got 0.8 liters in the center tank. The two saddles are 1.5, 1.5 for a total of 3.8 liters. Awesome. All right, so we've got the red Picaro ready to go. Should be very uneventful, just like the last one, so we'll do the same thing and see how things work out. The start may be the slowest thing because there's lots of air in the line. I didn't want to push too much fuel into the turbine, so. And it worked. Forced restart check. right, so as expected, red Picaro worked amazing. Everything's good, everything's as it should be. So, well guys, that wraps up the twin Picaros from Elite Aerosports. This is the 2.0 version, obviously. Last thing to do on these things, we're gonna polish them up and we are gonna get them put in our Revic wing bags. If you didn't know, we are a Revic dealer here at the Lighter Side of RC, so if you want, you can reach out to us to order your Revic stuff for you. We take care of the ordering and everything. It's very simple. We've got a set of purple wing bags only for the purple and green Picaro, and for mine, we've got the full set. So wing bags, fuselage bags, tail bags. My preference now for my sports jets is to go with the entire kit. For transportation, I'm really digging the fuselage bags. It's awesome. So quick little video series on these two, just basically covering the differences, and it was awesome. Really excited to fly these, or my plane, and really, yeah, looking forward to it. It's gonna be awesome. So if you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to list them down below. Thank you so much for watching the videos, and we'll see you in the next video. I'm very excited to see everybody at Turbines and Tumbleweeds in Sweetwater, Texas, October 2nd to October 5th, 2025. See you there.